is because it's very important for people when they look at CFA Institute to try to forget the fact that we were born in America. CFA Institute is a genuinely global organization, and my presence as its CEO, I think, is testament to that. We have a very broad reach, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. And the reason I have this role, and the reason I've lived in Asia for the last 22 years, is really part of that. It's the reason they asked me to do this was because I'm helping, hopefully, to bring a global perspective to globalize the organization in a very, very real sense going forward. And so please don't think of this or don't think of ourselves as anything other than a global organization that through our local societies is trying to operate in that, that nirvana really of being global and yet having local accountability. So why does trust matter? I think really the answer to that is a very simple and short one. The financial services industry and the investment management industry is founded on trust. If you think about what we do, we take people's money and we manage it on their behalf. And they give us money, we give them investment ideas. There is nothing that is more fundamental to that contract than trust. So I think trust for us is an absolutely core topic of importance when you think about our industry. The other thought I'd like to leave you today is that for your businesses, for those of you who run financial services businesses, trust is at the very center of building a sustainable business going forward. And I think this moment in time, as the generations change, that has never been more true. So I think there are two reasons, a fundamental reason and a business reason for why trust matters. And I hope that we can cover some of that off as we go through today's presentation. See if I can get this to work. Probably got it the wrong way around. There we go. Our mission. This is the mission of the CFA Institute, and I'll just read it to you: to lead the investment profession globally by promoting the highest standards of ethics, education, and professional excellence for the ultimate benefit of society. For those of you who have not had the misfortune to sit the CFA exam, and I hope none of you in this room have suffered from that, other than a very few of you, you will know that ethics makes up 10% of every level of the CFA qualification. It's absolutely fundamental to everything that we do. And at the exam on Saturday, and the party after the exam on Saturday, a young man came up to me, a young Nigerian man came up to me and said, well, why do you teach ethics? Why don't you take it out of the exam and do it as part of your continuing professional development effort? Why is it central to the exam? And I thought that was a really revealing question, really, when you think about it, that this young man didn't see the point of teaching ethics. The way that he felt about it in the credential was that the credential was a technical qualification and ethics was something else. And I think that's really quite interesting when you sort of pick that apart. And as I spoke to him a little bit more, I thought it was quite a revealing sort of comment that people that still are not connecting that what they do is not just the delivery of a technical competence to your clients. What you do is much more than that. It's founded on a relationship of trust. It's other people's money, and that is part of the skill of what you're doing. It's not just about whether you can pick stocks or whether you can pick the right bonds. It's about how do you create a bond of trust with your client so that they can rely on your advice, and through that reliance on your advice, manage their money sensibly, whether that's taking the appropriate amount of risk or really thinking forward about what their future aspirations are. Without that trust, that contract can't work properly. So I thought that was quite interesting. And I think really also, I love this word profession, which is in our mission statement twice there. And again, when you think about profession, I really like to sort of ponder what that word really means. And it's a much abused word. People self-declare themselves to be professionals. And if you really sort of pick apart, well, what is a profession? What lies at the heart of professionalism? It's one very simple construct, really, which is at the heart of professionalism is service to other people. Because a profession is not self-declared. A profession is something that society invests you with. It's not something that you yourself can say, I am a professional. A professional is a contract between society and the provider, where the provider is doing something that society wants. And so in return for that, what society does is it builds a protective fence around that profession, typically through licensing. And so the most obvious one to think about is doctors in that regard. Not everybody can hang their shingle up and call themselves a doctor. You have to be licensed by the medical council, and I'm sure you have a very good one here in Nigeria. And until you qualify as a doctor on a national level, you can't call yourself a doctor. And why? Because doctors do something that society needs, and in return for that, society protects them. The challenge with the financial services industry, frankly, is in most countries in the world, we do not enjoy that social license. In most countries around the world, people who work in banks and investment management industries don't need a license to operate on a personal level. They may do on a corporate level, but not on a personal level. And that really says everything that you need to know about the value that society places in what we do for a living. And I think that's a very important lesson that we should take into our hearts as financial services professionals. If we cannot do a better job of proving out to society why it is that they should care about us, ultimately we'll have a very short and unsustainable future going forward. We may have some short-term advantage, but long-term, really, we're doomed to over-regulation and inconsequence. And so I take this mission very, very seriously indeed, and the way that I interpret it on behalf of the investment management industry is to say that what we need to do is to become a profession. I don't believe we are there yet. I think we need to complete that journey to professionalism, and the most important task we can do to complete that journey is being a lot louder and a lot prouder about speaking about the importance of investment management to the world. And I find that very easy here in Nigeria and in other developing countries to talk about that, because it is obvious. It's obvious to all Nigerians that without an ethical, well-trained investment management industry, this country will not achieve its potential. And that's a very simple thing to talk about in Nigeria. In the US, in the UK, it's become a very cloudy conversation. People don't really understand what the financial services industry does, what we contribute to society. So I think we need to be a lot more vocal about the value that we bring, the fact that roads don't get built, hospitals don't get built, savings don't get managed properly, people don't retire comfortably, people can't put their kids through school unless you have a functioning financial system founded on good investment management professionals. And all of that is based on trust. And so I think this concept of corporate governance of trust is absolutely key to our aspirations over time to become a profession. I'm going to get this to work, am I? There we go. Oh.